Okay, so Jacob, you have to join a group.
Okay.
ISIS,
hmm
QAnon, or a bad improv troupe.
I mean, like, so my gut instinct, like ISIS is going to be too much work. Like, I don't. That's going to be a lot of work. I'm gonna have to like do stuff, and I don't
Right.
want to do stuff. Um, a bad improv troupe was my gut instinct, but my question is, so QAnon, I don't. I sort of live under a rock sometimes with stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah.
is QAnon as a group? Is it the people who are looking for Q are the QAnoners?
Yeah, so no, one person said he was Q and then he called January 6th, but what's weird is we haven't heard from Q in any like major way. It's almost as if whoever was running that is in the White House or something.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, for me, it's an even split between bad improv troupe and QAnon. And the question is, what are the baked good options? Like, and snacks. What's the snack portfolio here? Because neither of those are real work. Both
Fair.
of those are just
Fair.
making up shit, like for fun. And I just need to know what the snack options are. My gut says that probably QAnon's gonna have better snacks because like improv people, like sometimes once in a blue moon there's a baker, but
Yeah.
like the QAnon to like immaculate baker overlap, I think among like white moms is actually pretty high. We don't want to have that conversation, but I think it's probably true.
I had to grab me an ISIS brochure to be like, is there like a fifth wife option, like platonic, just reads Sylvia Plath to you at night? Like,
Right. Like the thing about ISIS is like I've honestly never been fully clear on like what it is. You know what I mean? Like I've never actually bothered to like really learn, and I don't intend to. I'm like, I'm not going into foreign affairs again. Like foreign affairs are exhausting, and that's just like sitting around being like, how do we do America violence different? You know? And I'm like, ew, I'm bored.
you're not wrong. And that is what we call dark woke. So, yes, family, welcome. This is the first guest that we have. And we're doing it this way. It's Jacob Tobia. Jacob is a lot of things: an author, a screenwriter, an actor, an advocate, like
A
voice
mess.
acting, just the whole a mess. But
Yeah,
you
don't forget
but you never
mess.
you never look like one.
Um, mm,
Yeah. So you're in the shit. Let's go. Let's hit it. We're already here. Jacob, what the fuck is going on? We've had Sissy,
yeah.
a coming of gender story that popped off. That like that shaped like Washington Post was writing about it, this place is writing about that place about it. But that was that the world's first introduction to you, and like tell us about what's going on right now.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, so going all the way back to Sissy. Sissy's my first book.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like at this point, I'm like pretty much done with my second book. I can't like we're not quite at the like tell everybody what it is stage yet. But it's much more serious and like
Yeah.
on a literary level, like I put a lot more into it. And so it's just funny because like Sissy feels like I mean, and I'm really proud of it. And like, it's a beautiful book. And
Yeah.
there's a lot about it that, like, crafting it was really special. But also, anything that I wrote back in like 2017, 2018, 2019, like, it's hard to juxtapose that against this
Mm,
present political moment,
yeah.
right? Because, and I don't know about you, but I was pretty fucked up on optimism in like the 2016 through 2019, 2020 window,
Right, right, right.
Like it was like so clear to all of us, like, oh yeah, like this trans thing, we gonna win, this non-binary thing is gonna pop off and like work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We're gonna build this amazing movement, it's gonna happen. And I'm gonna like buy a house from like doing all of this stuff, Like I'm gonna like get enough, like I'm gonna make so much money in this space that it's gonna work. And also, I'm just gonna like my intention with Sissy straight up was like I can see the sort of like backlash to non-binary identity coming. I
Yeah.
can see how it's going to happen. And the reason, and a lot of what I was seeing is that like the messengers at the time, or at least a lot of the messengers, like, and the average tone of like non-binary identity was very like, I'm non-binary and that I'm cooler than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and like
Yeah.
I'm a non-binary in that I read Judith Butler in undergrad, you know, like it had this very kind of like, oh, this is this complicated thing. This is
Yeah.
this enigmatic thing to be. This is so different and like super unique and like super interesting. And like that is not winning messaging because that's also like not true. Like being non-binary is like fundamentally boring. Like
Yeah.
having a
Yeah.
gender is boring. Like genders
Yes.
of all kinds are boring. No gender
Yes.
is interesting. Some
Yes.
people are interesting. People are interesting, but like gender is like fundamentally boring and it doesn't make you that interesting and it's not a personality. And I was and
And it's been
yeah,
crafted into one, and the
right,
aesthetics used to be really attached to a set of politics, and now it's like it's been reduced to just haircuts and feelings, and it's like
right.
we fuck with both of those things. That being
Yeah.
said, it's like it's being treated as this very trustworthy thing, and for me it's like race and class are better and stronger and more trustworthy indicators of quality of life, of like,
Mm,
you know, whatever.
mhm.
But gender is fluid, and yes, there's like economic attachment to it, but it's like I am very annoyed with where the discourse has gone and
Yeah,
what
same.
it like had, because okay, you're an academic, like you're a scholar, you're a proper
Well, I'm not, I
scholar.
mean, I don't have a PhD or nothing, but I am trying to go. I'm going back to grad school.
Yeah,
So
like
soon.
we've had the talks.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I just like, did academia ruin us? Like, did it
Yes.
fucking ruin us? Because I think it did.
No, for sure. Like the academic, like what's the right word? Not the academizing, the
I'm here for it.
academification,
Yeah, yeah.
the academicization. I'm trying to figure out what would academics call it. They would use the clunkiest one.
Oh
So
my
like,
God, no! Just throw in ontology. That's my
or
general rule
just
of
the
these.
academizing
Yeah,
of you know, but like, you know, truly the degree to which like understanding and supporting trans identity and understanding gender as a social construct and all of that became like sort of came to be correlated with the purview of being someone who has like you know, at least an undergrad education, who did a liberal arts degree, right? Like those, that sort of branding became a real problem for us because the
yeah,
reality is like in America, and I think we are all seeing it now in a deeper level than perhaps we thought. Like in America, like if your shit doesn't feel populist,
mm,
you're probably in danger.
real shit.
And
Yeah,
like, and so for me, one thing I wonder is like, what is the populist form of like trans liberation, right? And not
yeah,
populist in the like populism can hold so much. So like not populist in like, you know, like right wing understanding of populism, but in the like the general sense of populist of like what is like an accessible like how do we create an accessible like chill sense of non-binary identity where it's
yeah,
like yeah, oh yeah, like we're just people and
yeah.
like we need people to not think that being non-binary and owning a boat are necessarily mutually exclusive. Like I heard this podcast the other day and it was the funniest shit I'd ever heard. I was like, it was like these two girls talking about like one thing the left has fucked up on is that none of us own boats and I want to own a boat and sometimes I just want to be a Republican because boats are fun.
No, because they're always dressed for it. They have the boat shoes. I do have some terrible news though, Jacob. I do think I have to put you have to be. I think you do need to be in a little thumbnail in my corner here on the screen
Okay, that's fine.
because I'm like how. Remember, y'all, this is our first one, so the people who are listening on the podcast are good, but for YouTube,
We're
I think,
figuring it out for
yeah, I
YouTube.
think in order for everyone to be able to cut back and forth, you have to be there.
Totally.
But you're just gonna have to like look at me, I
No,
guess.
it's fine. I'll look at you. I
Okay,
can,
good. Because
your
I thought
face
about it,
is
I'm like,
radiant enough.
thank you, ring light.
Yeah.
Thank you, ring light, for making me look like I actually got some sleep. I agree. Okay, so like it's the you got to be broke, you got to be suffering. It's like the capital that is attached to like the aesthetic of
Hmm.
oppression, but like okay, I am training myself and this small crew, and that's why kind of the whole
Yeah.
dark woke thing is happening. I'm just like, we never used to be PC.
Right.
And I think we used to be able to just talk shit about ourselves and about the world very differently. And I do think that trans folks, I'm like, I'll take a bullet for us any day of the week. I could also be the shooter depending on the day. Like you are, like I'm losing my fucking mind with the
No,
discourse.
yeah, like that might be a little bit of a drastic way to put it, but like comedically,
Comedically,
you're not wrong, right?
comedically,
Like,
all of
yeah,
this is
like,
comedic. Yeah. But like,
and I think there's something, there's the real truth in that for me is it's just like, when is the last time that we as a movement had fun?
yes, that's right.
Like when, I mean, like when are we having fun? Like when
Yeah.
are we having a good time? I mean, like, yeah, sometimes like at the club or whatever, I guess, but I'm like, honestly, I don't like clubbing. Frankly, like I'm just like, I'm like, I don't, it's not my scene. Like, and what, like being on the internet yelling at each other isn't actually fun. And spiraling into oblivion with anxiety about impending fascist doom is not fun. And like, taking little walks is fun and playing songs for each other is fun. But
Yeah.
like in general, I think that like I want more of a like crusty punk kind of hooligan mentality back,
Yes.
where it's like, oh, I'm not non-binary in that like I'm really polite.
Yeah.
Like it's like, no, I'm non-binary in that like I'm gonna ruin your dinner party and
Yes.
also make it.
Yes. Like, oh, you didn't get my pronoun right for the 18th time. I'm not going to lodge another complaint. I'm going to take a shit on your desk.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
might not be quite my tactic, just in terms of like I don't know how much I enjoy like defecating in places that aren't toilets, but like yeah, the basic idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Like break
Or like
somebody's car
honestly,
windows, leave, like
for
throw a
me,
bunch of dildos at their car.
well, what I really want is like it's not even that. Like I want to be like, "Oh, you think that what you call me matters?
Yeah.
Oh, like you think that you can bring me down? Like you think that your words can really affect me here?
Yeah.
Like no, like you look like a clown and look like an asshole and I don't even care, right?
Yeah.
Like I want that kind of like badassery back, right? Like
Yeah.
I want that kind of like you can't fuck with me. You cannot shake me. You cannot like my dignity is not in your fucking hands.
That's
And
right.
I'm sorry if we stuttered with this pronoun thing and gave you the misconception that like you using the wrong pronoun for me or posting some bullshit definitions on some White House website or whatever, like that is something that I care about. Like I don't even care about you. I'm over here doing me.
Yeah.
I want that energy back.
Yeah. We, black folks, I think, have consistently sort of embodied that. So one of the things we trans folks, non-binary folks, we used to be exceptional organizers.
Yeah.
And like doing that was just part of the culture. It's like we used to throw bricks, now we throw shade more than anything. And it's like my first impulse is to be like, this hurt me, right? And there's
Right.
something really beautiful about the ability to say, okay, I went online, this person did XYZ, this hurt me. But then the culture started to change, and there was like a fragility that sort of, and then it was just,
Yeah.
yeah, like gather around me because I need this support, and I'm like, who's never done that? Trans women. Like trans women have been the mothering of the communities, have been like, no, actually, when somebody does this to you, right, you don't give a fuck or you make moves. Like I feel like with black folks, we were like, hey, could you guys stop calling us nigger? And they were like, no, nigger, we won't. And we are like, okay, well, I guess we'll just fucking make it the least cool thing in the world
Right.
for any of you to say it. Like we were like, we're gonna hit our own niggas over here.
Right.
And and to this day, like, you have people trying to bring back the word faggot. I mean, but we already did. You have people trying
Yeah.
to pull back in the word retard. It's constantly on the comedy stage. That's something I'm gonna like pull up, with you after. But it's just like, but that N word is still sort of off limits because we understood you cannot control how people refer to you or think of you as. What matters is the power aspect of it. Do they have power over you in a literal sense? Like Kwame Ture, right? If the white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. If he has the power to lynch me, that's my problem. And so it's just like there was this big fight about pronouns. And
Right.
I honestly agree. It just, and like, fight me on it, right? Fight me on it if I'm off base. But it's like, okay, so when Matt Walsh is on fucking Dr. Phil or something, right? And our best
Did
and
Matt
bright,
Walsh go on Dr. Phil?
yeah, like a couple years ago, I came across this clip.
Wait,
I don't
oh,
even want
that's
to,
hilarious.
yeah, and I didn't know this happened when it happened because like who cares
Yeah.
about that bald bitch? But um, there was a couple of folks on, and I don't want to hate on those.
Oh, I saw that episode. Okay, wait, backstory thing you should that you don't know about me that is I think is pretty fun.
Tell
I
me,
turned Dr. Phil down.
yeah, I
Yeah.
actually did too.
Oh my God. I wonder if we were talking to the same producer. They were
I
literally
was
like,
asked
will
about a
you
race
come on
thing though.
Dr. Phil and the last season of the show ever and debate turfs? And I was just like, well, there is one turf I would ever publicly agree to debate, which would be like JK Rowling. Like
Oh
I would
God,
debate
that would be
her
fucking amazing to watch. Yeah,
because the thing about debating somebody is you have to have enough intelligence to understand like you need to get more out of debating somebody than they get out of debating you,
that's it.
right? So like if I'm debating JK Rowling, that platforms me to her level and everyone goes, holy shit, whoa. That and so it's like it's an amazing accomplishment for me. But if I debate some nothing fucking idiot turfs from Twitter who have not
Yeah,
written books and have no professional skills and are random like terrible racist anti-vax white ladies,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like then all of a sudden they win that debate by default because they got to appear on a stage with me as equals, right?
What you
So I
just
was like,
said is you ethered all of the fucking losers
yeah.
who have an opinion and no expertise. You just fucking
Well,
ethered
right.
them.
You
Yeah,
can't debate those people. And I was
yeah,
like, I'm certainly not going to go on Dr. Phil to debate those folks. I'd happily talk to Dr. Phil one on one,
yeah,
but I'm not going to show up on the show to debate people who are
yeah.
beneath me
And you
because
have to
that
know
would
the
be platforming
mandate.
them.
Yeah, you have to know, it's media 101, right? Say what you want to say. And I don't know that it went the way it should have gone. And I do find that failure, there are failures like in public, like I think of like Hassan Piker who brought on Christian Walker on a show. Hassan is the biggest left streamer in the world right now. And, he brings on Christian Walker. Christian Walker is, a light bright and extremely charismatic and very smart, but also super, super, right wing leaning. Has great politics on shitty dads, which is so funny. I mean, I think that happens when Herschel Walker is your fucking father. But,
Mm.
anyway, Christian low key like dog walked him a little bit. And, I'm looking back at that clip I saw of Matt Walsh with these like,
Yeah.
trans people on the show or not. And there was a couple trans folks, a couple non-binary folks. And, you know, he was basically like, if I have to refer to you as this, then like, like my shit is Prince or my shit is King or you gotta, or what about adjectives? And he's an idiot. Like he actually is a very low IQ human. But ultimately I agree with not with the argument necessarily, but certainly with the conclusion, which is like, you don't actually get to control how people refer to you as. You don't actually, like for me, I'm like, we have bullying and harassment sort of protection if
Yeah.
somebody's going out of their way to fuck with you. But the idea that you reserve the right to have somebody terminated from a job, for example, because they didn't get your pronoun right, or to draw attention to where they live or, who their families are, to me, I have an issue with that. I think that is putting energy, even if, let's just move the fact that I don't like it as a strategy or a tactic.
Yeah.
How effective, what does that do for trans rights? Because to me, that's what I care about. I'm like, why weren't we fighting for universal health care and packaging trans rights into that versus an argument over pronouns and bathrooms, which honestly, the right kind of like kept attacking us in those areas, and we are cultural makers and cultural producers, and we were just like, this is now our fight, like the pronoun shit. And
Right,
like,
because they said
yeah,
they hit us there and we said okay. And the irony of that in my mind is like there's a reason why the right wing focused on pronouns so intensely is because it's the issue where we look stupidest when we fight them and we look weakest when we fight them.
No, that's some real shit that you just said right
Like
there.
they decided that pronouns were the big issue, like more than we did, right?
Yeah.
Because like I didn't, I think that like back in the day, pronouns were kind of like a cool in kid thing of like, yeah, when
100.
we're in our own spaces, like, and also like, like gender neutral pronouns are this thing that's like catching on, and we do it one on one with people that we love, and like, work within institutions of which we're a part, but like what ended up happening, I think, is that the right, when they came for us and they said, "Oh, these pronouns are like you can't force me to use your pronouns," and blah 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 blah. Like the way that that enabled them to depict us
Yeah.
is as people who are so fragile that we can be broken by a single word,
Yeah.
right? That they have the power to break us by using the wrong pronoun, right? That all they have to do to completely politically compromise us is just call me he. And
Yeah.
then boom, I'm gonna go ballistic, I'm gonna fall apart. They will have won. And like that's all it takes to thwart me as a political entity. And I'm
Yeah.
like, bitch, if you want to call me he in a meeting on repeat, like I'm not going to come for your job, but everyone's going to hate you by the end of the meeting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like I'm going to use soft power, but
Yeah.
also like it's a matter of respect, and like that is important, but also
Yeah.
like you aren't going to ruin me.
That's right. That's right.
And
Like you,
I've
it's saying
never
something
in my
about you that you feel the need to do
right.
that. Yeah.
And truly in person, and like, some people, I'm sure some people will be like, well, that's, some of it's because I think some of it's because I've curated my life to avoid people who are shitty to me,
Yeah.
right? I think some of it is because I exude a profound do not fuck with me
You
energy.
do. You do
Um,
that. Yes.
like truly, like, and it's
Yeah.
saved me for my whole life. Like
Yeah.
people
And I
just
know because I was
know.
drawn to, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You're the other,
Like
like,
even in my
leaning on the wall
girliest,
person.
cutest,
Yeah.
most fun, people are still like something about them. Like I don't think I shouldn't. And I'm like, correct, you shouldn't. Like what you should do is come over here and hang out because we're gonna be buds, right?
Yeah.
Like but I think like in general, like I don't think in my life I've ever had anyone intentionally in real life weaponize pronouns against me. I've
Yeah.
never met anyone with the audacity to continually antagonistically refer to me as he in a public setting,
Yeah.
like over and over
Yeah.
again against my protest or objection. What I have experienced a ton of, which honestly doesn't bug me that much,
Yeah.
is like people using he who've known me forever, who grew up using he for me, or people using he and like not just like because they forgot. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like there's not malice, it's not malicious, it's not done with any kind of like, it's not because they think that I don't deserve kindness or dignity in the world. It's not because they're trying to come for me. Like it's just a little slip up and everyone's working on it. And in
Yeah.
general, if you build the foundation or the bedrock of your litmus for what it means to respect your community on linguistic perfection in the United States of America, you are going to fail every single time.
Yeah.
And that's what we did. And then we failed and we lost the thread and we
Yeah.
lost we lost, we lost the goodwill of so many people because they started seeing us as whiny, annoying people who are going to go
That's
to
right.
HR all the goddamn time.
Yeah. Yeah. We like just there's the best jokes that I've seen in comedy when it
Yeah.
comes to trans folks. And you already know my position on a lot of things. It's like I'm never offended by these jokes. If I'm ever offended, it's that we didn't come up with them first. You know, but
Better say
it's
that.
like there's this running thing where the miracle of making trans people laugh,
Yeah.
which is wild because we used to be so funny. Like we were,
Yeah. And we
and I
still
think in
are.
private we
It's
still
just
are. Yeah, that's
on the
exactly right.
internet we stopped. And I'm
But on the
like, what?
internet we stopped, and I think a lot of it is like, if I'm gonna speak off the cuff, I'm like, I'm tired of like, I can't believe I was referred to as she, and I'm like, I know that you're he, but your red lipstick and double D's out confused people. And I understand that we live in a regressive society that doesn't understand all of this shit. But the idea that everybody should just be pronoun neutral until that is that is what the world should be,
Right.
or abolish gender. I'm like, I don't really want that shit abolished. I like it. I just think it's very stupid how it became a lightning rod political issue on anything other than healthcare and economic equity.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is that it stopped us from getting, we've gotten distracted from like
Mm,
bigger conversations that I think we should support. So for example, and my sister Billie Lee did this anthology about like microaggressions.
yeah.
And the one I wrote about, I wrote this, oh my God, it's like the cuntiest little essay. I'm such a piece of shit. I'm such a piece of shit. I can't believe. But I wrote about how like the first time that the New York Times referred to me as mixed Tobia, like MX
X, yeah.
Tobia, and how at first I was like so like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then at a certain point I was like, wait, why the fuck is their style guide still using honorifics at all? Why in the hell are
Yeah.
they trying to like they must refer to people as Mr. like Mr. Biden, like fucking Ms. fucking this, like Mrs. that, right? Like they must do that. And I'm like, and so like it's like, yeah, I could fight for inclusion within that schema,
Yeah.
but it's stupid to fight for inclusion within a schema that's ridiculous. Like
Yeah.
what the New York Times needs to do is get rid of that as their style guide. Why the
Real shit.
fuck do you need to gender people? Why do you need to use honorifics at all? It's weird, it's anti-modern, it's antiquated, and it sounds strange. And frankly, it lends some people like a sense of real respect who don't deserve it at all.
Fucking okay, you know what?
Because
New
like
call
don't
to
refer to him as
action.
Mr.
Yeah.
Trump.
Eliminate the
No.
gender fucking style guides. I have never felt so strongly about something in my life immediately. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're right. That honorific, I keep saying Mr. Trump
Right.
and Mr. Musk. And I'm like,
Stop referring
musky
them
bitch.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's like tire fire Musk
Yeah.
and like that fuckwad, like
Yeah.
and also even like in informal settings, I'm like, why you gotta write Mrs. or Miss or Mister on your goddamn wedding invitations? Like, stop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't vibe your wedding that way. That's incorrect energy for your wedding. Like,
Yeah.
so like you want it to be like, is this like the stuffiest, whitest country club wedding ever? Like, is that why you're doing it? Like, are we going to be eating like fucking like 1950s like Jello shrimp or whatever the hell they used to eat? Like what is this regressive bullshit? Just like be contemporary. No one needs to be Mr. or Mrs. Your marital status should never be part of your naming, like in ever. And like and
If you're gonna have marital status, I demand divorce status as well. Like I want some sort of
yes.
honorific when I have battle scars, when we've survived.
And
We're
you get
all
like an
divorced. Yeah,
extra letter for every divorce.
that's exactly
And
right.
also the other thing I pointed out in the essay, and I'm like, I still feel very strongly about this. I'm like, if there's a way, if we have to indicate whether or not women are wifed up,
Yeah,
then
yeah,
we certainly better indicate whether or not men are like I need to know which men are available. It's very important to me
yeah.
to know.
No,
I need to
literally.
know
One.
if you are if
Listen,
I can hit on you or not, and you better put that in your formal title.
let me tell you. I saw the WNBA. You know, the salaries are finally making moves. They're finally getting endorsement deals. College athletes are able to make money, and I was just like, let me find a WNBA, like an Amazon, so I could just say uppies to her and like and just like do my little politics. I'm
You
like, let
deserve
me
that.
know. Let me know who's
Yeah.
out there.
But yeah, like I think in
Yeah.
general, it's just like we sometimes like we will we'll be so distracted by kind of like our own ideals that we like lose the forest for the trees, in so
Yeah.
much as like the conversation should not be about getting gender neutral honorifics in the New York Times. The conversation should be, why the fuck is the New York Times using honorifics, period? They're the
Yeah.
only fucking newspaper left that does. And like yeah, and I had another example of it that was good. Oh, same thing with like bathrooms, right? With the
Mm.
bathroom conversation, everyone's talking about like, oh, we need to like, like everyone is like freaked out about, well, which bathroom can any person use, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, the conversation we should be having is, why are bathrooms so shitty?
Yes.
Like, why
Yes.
are bathrooms so bad?
Yes.
Why do they have those little stalls where you can like literally see through the fucking gap
Everything. You can
at
see
someone who
I'm
is like
making
has their
eye
pants down?
contact as I'm having a pee floating over the fucking toilet.
Right.
I
Like,
am
why is
making
that
eye
allowed in
contact.
building
Yeah.
codes? Why is there not like why have we accepted that bathrooms must be like hyper budget and terrible?
Yeah.
Like, why does every like why you can literally just build them with drywall
Yeah.
between each toilet? And like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little more expensive, but it's fucking worth it,
It's
right?
it's
Like,
so nice. And honest to God, you're so mad at non-binary people and this and that and the other. Where do you take your shits in the airport? Because you're up in our bathrooms, niggas. Okay?
mm,
We are a value add. As annoying as we become, like this is like what
the
people are
family
outraged over.
bathroom,
And I think that's what's pissing me off. It's like the horseshoe theory, like that horseshoe
right?
theory. And it's like we're starting to sound way too alike. Like the extreme polarized right and the extreme polarized left. And no, we are not the same because I'm using extreme on the left in air quotes because extreme is like bread on the table, free healthcare, free education, whereas extreme
Right.
on the right is like fucking murder, kill. I feel bad about myself. Everybody
Yeah.
else in the world should suffer. But in terms of how we sound,
Right.
so rhetoric only, we're echoing the same points of outrage and it's
Mm.
weird. And it's not an exact science, but I've just, and so you talked about this other book that you are writing,
Yeah.
and masculinity is something that everybody is obsessed with right now because it's according to the Atlantic, the Washington Post, the New York Times. I'm not going to say NPR because I love them too much. And everything else. But there's this thing, the male loneliness epidemic. What's happening to men? What's going on with men? And in the manosphere, of which I am a casual lurker,
Yeah.
a little bit more than casual. I really enjoy
You lurk and sometimes you dabble.
the performance of toxic masculinity appeals to me. That being said, it's like I separate things. Like character wise, I like Dana White, for example, but his relationship to the Trump administration is gross to me, right? Like character wise, a little bit. I like Joe Rogan. I like who he used to be. Post COVID, I'm like, yuck. But you are writing something. And I don't want to like. Let me know if I'm over speaking because I know you were saying that you might or may not want to talk about that
Oh yeah, no,
project.
we can talk about I'm
Okay, so
happy
this
to
because this
talk
is
about sort of the abstract
yeah,
ideas within the book. Like
yeah,
I'm just like, we haven't like announced the title and all that bullshit yet. Like
yeah.
um
But you are
but
writing about a series of essays on masculinity.
yeah, on men and masculinity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And essentially kind of really digging into the ways in which our feminist discourse has missed the point.
Mm.
Because there's a lot of junctures at which that's true, and I'm trying to take like a real compassionate and uh and honest mirror to how we as a and to be clear, like there is not one source of like feminist discourse, right? Feminist discourse is incredibly nuanced
Yeah.
and comes from a million different places. The type of feminist discourse I'm talking about in this specific moment is like the mainstream online pop feminist discourse
Yes.
on social media, especially of the last 5 years. That's
Got
like,
it.
so to be
Got it.
specific, right?
Yeah.
And I think in general, like we've really lost the thread of what it means to engage people, what it means to transform people, and what it means to be a movement that centers understanding the hurt and suffering of other people.
Mm.
Because the thing that is abundantly clear is that men are fucked right now. Like men are suffering
Yeah.
in a degree that is like not unprecedented, but is certainly getting worse and escalating, I think, um, every year because the polarization of our country and the polarization of discourse, the polarization of like our ideas in general is actually compounding the suffering of men and pushing them
Mm.
further down this rabbit hole that is only hurting them. Because the manosphere, let's be very clear, everyone in the manosphere is someone who understood that men are suffering greatly, the boys are suffering greatly, that masculinity is fundamentally broken,
Yeah,
and these are hurting people. And they said, oh, I can exploit your pain for a buck.
precisely. Yeah,
Let me
That's
get to
Jordan
it.
Peterson right
Yeah,
there. And Jordan Peterson used the outrage of trans people
yeah,
to build a literal media to become part of and his own type of media empire. Like it's that
yeah,
their propaganda machine is incredibly well funded. Let's just be clear. Like that's the number one thing. That's why we're getting
yeah.
all this shit in our ears. But there has, and it's like, how do you walk that line of, because I agree. I completely agree. And I love men. I don't, you know, I don't care for dick. Right.
Yeah, leave that to me.
Yeah, I love men. Yeah. Right. I'm like, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm the opposite of,
I'll take the dick.
yeah, like
You
I'm like
can
the
love that.
opposite of straight women that way. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah,
like,
straight women are like, I love dick and I hate men.
yeah,
And you're
exactly.
like,
I'm
I
like,
love men and I hate dick.
yeah, I'm
And I'm like,
like,
I love men and I love dick.
there you go. And it's like, how do we hold that line? Because, and it's always fun because I'm like, this is where I get to ask questions. You know, sometimes it's like when you do the whole smarty arty research thing, you ask questions,
Yeah.
then you also have to be the person to answer them. And I actually feel so good. I'm like, I don't need to know in this moment. How do we hold that line of like, okay, so the male loneliness epidemic, right? But then you zoom out and you're like, everybody's fucking lonely right now. Like
For
and
sure.
that's not only is that true, but that's not even unique to this time that we're in. When you look back, recorded history, people were fucking lonely. I mean, of course, it's been
It's a little unique to our historical time, though, in terms of like
no,
the
no,
degree of
absolutely.
isolation and the breakdown of the family and all that kind of
And the
stuff.
third space, moving away from religion and those kinds of
Yeah.
community oriented things. But I think adding that little caveat matters because we do have this thing where like of terminal uniqueness, and I'm like, no, like we got COVID, but them niggas had the Black Plague and shit or the bubonic. I'm good,
Oh, right, right, right. Yeah.
even
But
though the
like,
shit's coming
yeah.
back. But how do we hold that line between the fact that it is true, there that patriarchy, misogyny, all these things have fundamentally broken men's relationship to themselves,
Yeah.
and that have become an extremely destructive force, and we need them, and it's not unique to them, and that the pushback in that I get when I yap about dudes is we are doing the exact same thing, right? Like we prioritized men and their needs because that's what patriarchy did, and it got us here. And even now, when the house is on fire, it's not. If they're saying you're still talking about that, and like what would you say to that? Because I was like, I understand this emotionally,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm like we're not trying to put out one house, we're trying to put out the neighborhood, right? We're trying to put the fire out in the neighborhood. But what do we do with the fact that this is extremely urgent amongst a myriad of other urgent things, but this one feels particularly important?
Oh yeah, like if we
Yeah.
don't get this right, I mean it's interesting, in this sort of specific political moment,
Yeah.
I've somewhat retreated for a bit, right? Like, because it's like in order to write a book, you do have to like actually make some space for yourself to
Yeah.
like, and the book is
A
like, I
good
mean,
one.
very,
In order to write a good one.
yeah, and it's like it's certainly the hardest I've ever worked on anything in my entire life, and it is the most intentional I've ever been, and it is
Mm.
the most aching and vulnerable thing I've ever created. And it took tons out of me and kind of ruined my life, frankly. Because like, I mean, just at a
I
certain
can
point, you have to stop solving problems
Yeah.
in your life in order to like keep getting this thing written. And then you realize like, oh, I've like procrastinated like being a happy person, period. Like, yikes, to
Yeah.
write these
Feeling
essays.
super, super activated right now because I
Yeah,
relate. Yeah.
you've never, I mean, you know nothing about any of this, so I
Right.
just have to teach you about it because you haven't experienced it, because you would never, your personal life would never get out of balance because you're working too much. So don't be wary of that, lest you ever start. But no, like the thing that strikes me as so basic and yet the cornerstone of everything is like we have to start, we have to stop acting like patriarchy is serving men.
Yeah.
Like that is the lie that we have spouted back over and over again, right?
Yeah.
Because that is the lie that men in power tell all men.
They're telling
They
them that
lie
right
and say
now.
that
That's right.
patriarchy helps you.
Yeah.
Patriarchy is going to help you. Patriarchy is going to get you a good life,
That's right.
right? And that has always been a lie.
Hmm.
Like, that's not true. Patriarchy does not serve men. It does not serve the average man in the
Yeah.
same way that capitalism does not serve the average American, right? Like, we live
Yeah.
in a nation built on like on the exploitation of everyone's hope, right? That they are going to be one of the people who actually gets to benefit from this ruthless system that statistically they are not going to benefit from. Like,
Right.
in the same way
That's
that you
right.
are statistically 100,000 times more likely to be homeless in America, like, than to be a billionaire. You
Yeah.
were always closer to homelessness than to being a billionaire. And yet, billionaires have exploited the shit out of Americans to identify so much with them, to
Yeah.
think that might be coming for me just around the corner. Like, it's this trick that they play. It's this bait and switch where they say,
Yeah.
support me and you might get to be me.
Yes.
And patriarchy has never done anything other than that either. But when it comes to capitalism, we are very good at saying capitalism does not serve working people or any people. Capitalism only serves a extremely small group of people. And, like, you working hard is not going to matter and is not going to, like, that, like, you working hard is not going to upend the system that is hurting you.
Yeah.
And it's okay to embrace that hopelessness, because you have to embrace that in order to call for something different. And it's
Yes.
time that we do the same thing with patriarchy and men. And we say, men are not served by this. You have these icons who sit at the top of patriarchy who
Yeah.
are acting like one day you too get to be a billionaire patriarch.
That's
You're
right.
so close. Just be more of a man, just man better. And then you're going to get to
Just
be the
man.
total in charge patriarch who has everything he wants, like I do. And the reality is that the people who are telling you that you're going to get everything that they have are also miserable,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's a lie through and through. And I don't know when, but we really lost the thread as a feminist movement because we refuse to acknowledge that patriarchy doesn't serve men. Or at least we don't want to say it so plainly.
Yeah.
And it's time we say it plainly. And I
And
know that
it's
because I grew up in it and it didn't
yes.
serve my ass. Okay.
And you just answered, the question of, and obviously I'm being cheeky on purpose, but like, what would a non-binary, queer, what do they call us? Like fago, no, like speak on masculinity. It's like, I get the same kind of shit. Like, what would I know
Yeah.
about masculinity? And it's like, that's what happens when you actually love something, is that you pay
Yeah.
attention to it, you understand the nuances of it and the performance of it, and there's something really beautiful in it. But it's just like, even okay, low key, I am a little bit of a patriarch in how I run things. And I had to come to terms with that. Like in my relationship, I'm like, in relationships, this is extremely uncomfortable for me. I feel like everybody should know this by now. I don't like talking about my personal shit
Right.
ever.
Right.
But you know all
But we
about that,
get
Jacob.
into it.
It's not like you sat down and listened to me crash out about trying to write a fucking memoir. But
No,
anyway,
I've never. Yeah.
yeah, I owe an email to my editors. I'm still waiting. Anyway, that's later. I'm like, and comedy has actually forced me to come to terms with certain parts of my personality, which, by the way, women have all, especially the women I've dated, have all known,
Right.
and enjoyed. And that's the thing, is like, okay, so I'm on stage. You can't try to be cool or mysterious on a comedy stage.
That's true.
You die on the stage. Like there's no time for it. And it's honest. Like when I was like, yeah, no, women do want to, I get on stage and I say what I know to be true. Women do want to be told what to do. They absolutely do. But you all got it wrong. They want to be told what to do. Like, go home, put on that dress I got you. I'm picking you up at 8 and I'm taking you out to dinner. Like, put something nice on, whatever. And it sort of ends there. Like, you know what I mean? Like there is a way, but y'all got it all fucked up. Like masculinity, like, leads from the back. It understands that it's a service position. And it's one rooted, I think, in like utility and like care. But that's true of like any energy. But I guess, you know, I've been
Well,
trying to,
can I
yeah,
engage in just like that specific thing, like the whole like, because I want to be clear too about my relationship to this stuff, which is
yeah,
like, if 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 a man who I had any interest in
yeah,
told me like, all right, you go like you're gonna go home from work,
yeah.
you're gonna put on that one cheetah print All Saints one that you got
That's right.
from Crossroads for like $20, but you
Yeah,
look fucking firing.
yeah.
You're gonna put on those dangly earrings that I like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're gonna meet me at this restaurant, and
Yeah,
then we're gonna go back to my place or your place or whatever,
yeah,
and I'm gonna drive you home, and it's going down. I would like melt,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like I'm like moist thinking about it.
yeah.
But here's the thing.
I'd like to think that I got you there, but let's go on.
No, yeah, no, for sure. Like you're definitely a horizon of my sexuality just as a human being, which I'm sure that's the first time you've ever gotten that. So yeah, and I'm sure
Yes,
that you've never,
yes.
like, I bet you have all these faggots out here swooning and they don't understand why all the time.
Everybody's confused.
Yeah,
Like
no, for
it's,
sure. Like it's true. I pick up on it. Like I got a little bit of a crush. Don't worry about it.
yeah,
Um,
it's mutual.
but like, but the thing that is like that I am able, the reason I'm able to hold that and
Yeah,
like not be ashamed for wanting that, because I'm like,
yeah.
it's not shameful to want that. That's fun and good, is because like you have to understand that's a performance.
Yes,
That's
yes,
not who I want
yes.
every day.
That's
That's
right.
not what I need all the
That's
time.
right. Yeah,
And like, but it's like it's a scene we want to paint.
yeah.
We're playing.
It's
And
such
if
a
you do
fucking
it
hot scene. Yeah,
playfully,
yeah,
then I have fun. But if I were ever with a partner, if I were with a man who did that earnestly and like actually out of a place that he controls me, it would feel so scary and gross,
yeah.
right? Like the whole point is like the whole point is like you have to understand that at the base level, straight people are the kinkiest people on the planet. They are kinkier than anybody because they demand an endurance performance, a 24/7
Yeah,
performance of their kink. And
yeah,
it's like, and it's disgusting.
yeah.
It's gross. Like the way that cis women police the masculinity of their fucking partners and say like the moment that he like cries or like he's sensitive or does a girly thing
Yeah,
and she says, "Oh, that gave me the ick."
yeah.
I'm like, so you want him, you need a method actor, patriarch?
Mm,
Like, what the fuck's wrong with you,
right,
actually?
right, right,
Truly,
right, right,
sincerely, what the
right,
fuck is wrong with you?
right.
Why are you asking someone to give that kind of performance? No person can perform any character all of the time,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's like, and I think that's part of what's frustrating is that people look at someone like me and they
Hmm.
think I don't know how to have fun and they think I don't know how to like acknowledge what I really want. And I'm like, no, I love playing with dominance and submission. I think the dominant partners are really hot. I
Yeah,
love when people put on that little air. It
yeah,
gets me going. It's fun. I love when men are that way. I have a good time. But once I've opted in and and knowing that you're a full person behind that.
right.
I don't want to be with someone who isn't a whole person. And I know that I would be hurting my partner if I asked him to be that person all the time.
Hmm.
I would be injuring him spiritually.
Right. It's like
If you are the
that
kind of
method
partner who
acting that
says,
you were talking about. Like the
right,
performance is hot. The
right,
performance is hot. The overcommitment, the method acting, it's obnoxious and
yeah.
stunted.
And like no one can lead all the time.
Yeah.
No one should lead all the time. It's not healthy, right? Like no one should be dominant all the time. No one should be submissive all the time. Like everything should be in balance and you have to have moments where like and if you're doing it right, the actual feeling of who's controlling the scene
Yeah.
oscillates the entire time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
and a good heterosexual marriage is one where who is in control is always in question, but you can still play with those dynamics however you've been socialized to want to play with them or whatever intrinsically you desire out of that, you
Yeah.
know? Like it's like yeah, and I just think that in general it's this feeling of like we need to say to men and boys like yeah, you can be that way, but Lord, like not all the time. Please don't ever feel you need to be that all the time,
Yeah.
ever. And also, we got to learn to like, if you are someone who is inherently a little subby, right? If you're someone who inherently, and I'm talking about it in kink terms because I find that so much more useful than
Mm.
gender terms, right? Because I'm not going
Huh.
to say feminine and mean
Yeah.
submissive. That's disgusting.
Interesting.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
saying that. Like, because feminine and submissive are not the same thing. They have never been
That's
the same
true.
thing. They do not mean the same thing, right? Like, you can be feminine and completely dominant. And honestly, sometimes I meet some women who are really feminine and completely dominant, and it is also a horizon of my sexuality where I'm just like there are definitely moments where like Kate Blanchett, I'm just like
No. Yeah.
some of the roles she plays, I'm just like her, because she was in Carol, right? Yeah, like her and Carol, I'm like, that is feminine and dominant, and like, oh my God, I want her to tell me what to do. You know what I mean? Like, am I pansexual? Who knows? But anyway, to get to the point,
Yeah.
which I think I might have lost track of.
No.
Oh
No.
no,
You're spitting facts.
yeah, but like it's like I'm someone who kind of innately, like, because I'm basically a girl who's refusing to transition, right? I'm the laziest trans woman you know, and so non-binary just works better.
Yeah.
Like I have the same sort of toxic, shitty Disney desires in my feminine heart, right? Of like, I just want to be the little woman that a big strong man throws around and takes to the ball, right? Like I have all that shit within me. And the thing I love most about being queer is that it has allowed me to interrogate that
Mm.
and learn, hey, I actually, what would it mean for me to learn to enjoy being dominant sometimes? What would it mean for me
Yeah.
to push outside of my comfort zone and learn other ways of interacting? And I think that part of it is it's just like people are really, they don't know how to have that level of freedom. And I'm like,
Mm.
dude, like, when's the last time that like your girlfriend held you and let you cry?
Right.
Also, like, do you not understand how hot it is to hold a man while he cries? Because if you've never done it, like, oh my God.
I'm just trying to imagine this one part as a clip. Just that one, just that
No,
like
like,
5 second soundbite.
it's the hottest thing on earth. Like, it is so intimate and so like it like it's full body tingles kind of level of like this is amazing and great. And like, I don't know, I want all of us to challenge how we've been taught to desire. And I want us to acknowledge that the pressure men are under in the erotic marketplace to
Yeah.
perform the lowest common denominator of masculinity and dominance and control and all that other shit, like that is crushing them and that we play a role in creating that marketplace.
Hmm. I have
We all
to.
do,
I have to agree.
everyone.
Yeah. I think that's correct. So Andrew Tate, right?
Yes.
Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, uh, Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, uh, the Paul brothers, Aiden Ross. Like these are guys that directly played a hand in the success of this new administration. They all came out. Something happened between 2020 and now, where Trump and that sort of belief system, that ideology, that like hyper masculinity thing, whatever. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's patriarchy on steroids, but like the culture shifted, and I know that the Manosphere had a huge role in sort of making it all pop culture, right? Like there were several key players in that, and we all want to blanket say, and I push back against this because it's like, oh, they're all just racist, they're all terrible people, da da da, and I'm like, actually, if you look at Joe Rogan or Theo Vaughn or who is that? Tony, Kill Tony guy who made that joke about Puerto Ricans. These are guys that all have more relationships with black people, and specifically black men. Like, let's just be really clear about that, than average white folks. So, like, this idea that they're blanket racist, but we're seeing like it was really this like coming together around patriarchy, and they are owning the pop culture discourse right now, and Why was that so successful now? Because I feel like, sure, it's I know time and everything else, but
Hmm.
it really struck a nerve right now. And you are looking at this, and you're an expert in this, and you're trying to convey this message to the world. I'm like, I could point to a couple of things, but I'm what shifted? Why was it so obvious now versus 2020?
Hmm. I mean, that's a fucking question.
Yeah. I've been sitting there just
Um,
being like,
yeah, like how to even begin thinking through that
yeah,
and making cogent sentences.
yeah,
Which is funny because it's like you write a whole book about a thing, but honestly, like the book is not like the work I was doing was not, it wasn't analyzing, like it wasn't like charting the history of the rise of the manosphere kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Like it's
You're right.
more intimate than that.
Totally.
Um, but uh, I I'm going to try out some language here, and part of what I'm working on in my life is giving myself more permission to stumble in public.
I
Um,
would I would love that, and I'm hoping that this whole reframe of like what dark woke or whatever is actually an invitation into that, because we
yeah,
have honestly destroyed debate, interaction,
we're
troubleshooting,
learning in
brainstorming in public.
public.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's
I
exactly
like how we
right.
got to the same word. Like that was basically a Jinx, you, and me, a soda moment.
Totally.
But like, yeah, I think if it, to distill it into maybe its simplest point,
Yeah.
like men and boys have been suffering pretty intensely for the last 20, 25 years, maybe more, right? Like, because economically, our country has been getting more unfair every single year since Reagan, right? Things have been getting worse for the average American. The social safety net has been eroded bit by bit by bit by bit, right?
Hmm.
Like, income inequality has gone up and up and up and up and up. Like the
And
average
part
per,
of the masculinity, part of the patriarchy rule book is on your economic value. Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like and there was some movement around trying to like help men and boys process their pain, but not a huge one. And what I think in a moment when men and boys are doing worse than they've been doing in a very, very long time, have the least sense of existential security, and don't have the language yet of
Mm.
understanding, like, oh, capitalism and patriarchy don't serve me, right? They're still seeing like in the moment when men and boys were suffering most was a discourse rose from sort of the popular left, if you want to call it that, the neoliberal feminist spaces, from within pop culture discourse that was really it was a reductive summation of what we were actually saying. But like what men and boys heard was like we finally got the mic on a mass national cultural level where
Mm.
like feminism landed and said patriarchy is bad and patriarchy is hurting women and men are bad for doing that.
Mm.
And like that is true, right?
Yeah.
Like that is true. But when you say that to a generation of men who are doing worse off than their fathers,
Right, right, right.
it creates anger because what men needed to hear was patriarchy has hurt all of us, maybe most of all you, certainly just as much you.
Right.
And the message got completely convoluted and turned into no, like we doubled down on what the lying patriarchs were, like the sort of patriarchal Kool-Aid. Like we doubled down on what it was saying
Yeah.
on a mass cultural level. And so and so what I think on this gut level, men and boys in our culture know is like, I'm not doing great. I don't have prospects to do great.
Mm.
Like, this country is not set up for me to do great anymore. And you're telling me that I'm powerful. You're telling me that I have everything I want. You're telling me that my life is really good.
Right.
I'm now angry.
I have privilege. You're
You're telling me
telling
that
me
I
I
have
have privilege.
privilege?
Yeah.
Like I'm driving Ubers all day, every day under
Yeah.
like a crypto fascist, fucked up world. I have no life savings. I do not have health insurance. And you're telling me I'm privileged. And you're telling me that I'm part of the patriarchy and I'm part of the problem. And like when you tell someone who's suffering intensely that they are not suffering,
Yeah.
they get angry. And we should, and so what I'm trying to help us do as a culture is redirect our attention to hearing and caring about the way that men and boys are suffering under patriarchy,
Yeah.
and not in a like, oh, because it matters more than the suffering of women, not because it matters more than the suffering of queer or gender diverse people or trans folks,
Yeah.
right? But because that work is the least accomplished currently on a national scale, in my opinion. Like, and you know, it's a hot take, it's an edgy thing to say, because when it comes to material conditions, like that doesn't play out when in terms of like economic control and some of those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, like the work of helping men understand their suffering and their own emotions and their own like mind,
Yeah.
that work's just not like it's sorely lacking. And it's we've ended up with an entire generation throwing a temper tantrum. We've ended up with an entire generation whose righteous anger should have been directed at people hurting them, but
Mm-hmm.
it's now been directed at people beneath them.
Yeah. That
In
is a hot
yeah,
take. I actually I need and enjoy when things are articulated in like really strong assertive terms, because the point is, and what we've lost the skill of doing is taking a position, is like taking a position and being willing to explore that position, but you have to commit to the words. And
right.
there is something like it was interesting because I immediately agreed and then pushed back on that agreement. So I was just like, I
Which is
actually,
healthy.
yes, I'm like, I agree with this. And then I'm like, okay, but wait, I only have this like really backwards thing, and I'm cognizant of time. I don't want to like yap your ear off, but my experience, it was really interesting. I grew up, and I was mostly just considered like a very, very like a very ugly girl. Like it was like,
Mm.
we don't know what that is. And then there was a lot of gender confusion for other people, not for me, all throughout high school. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What's going on there? Whatever. So I was accidentally non-binary, but and then I had this like year and a half where I was very, very normatively beautiful. It was
Mm.
confusing. And then I shaved off my whole fucking head. And just like was like, ah, ah. And then, all this other shit. But there was this moment when I hadn't even fully identified as masculine of center or anything like that in the
Yeah.
queer community. But I had this experience where I felt like what my brother felt like when he was maybe 12. There's something that happens with boys in communities, in families, in neighborhoods, whatever. And I don't think this is true for every boy, but I think when you're like, because a very masculine, and it's interesting because my argument is going to be I'm not even gonna. This is where I get too tangential and in my head. I was just basically the assumptions that people make, where it's like turfs, right? Well, you were men just enjoying male privilege, and now suddenly you're dead. And I'm like, that's
Right.
actually not how that shit worked at all. Those were people who were punished endlessly and ceaselessly for their
Right.
perceived femininity, etc. But with masculinity, you don't really get punished that way. If you are a tomboy or whatever, you're not punished in the same way. So, across the board, anyway. So I went very, very feminine and was like, wow, I'm considered beautiful for the first time. And then I became this masculine. And I remember being, 9 or something and watching my brother just get really, really long. Like his balls dropped, his voice got deeper, like he's feeling himself. His dick's getting hard for the first time. And he's like running around. And that's something that, and then everybody's looking at them like they're special. They're going to do big things. They represent something. And you can see it in moms. You could see it in the way they talk about their kids and the sons. And it's always the sons, the sons, the sons.
Yeah.
And I had I had a very small slice of that experience in the queer community, being the new guy on the scene and being, everyone was like, oh, you're a he, right? And all this stuff. And, I was like, oh, that is a key difference, is that when you are socialized or seen as feminine, or socialized as a woman, socialized as a girl, or punished for being feminine, whatever it is, you are not special. You are never told that you are special. You understand how to get the fuck on with it and how to endure. And you're like, oh, I'm worth nothing. I guess I'll just scrape together this life for myself and, I'll be of service and whatever. But I, for the first time on a weird level, I was like, I understood why they are men. Boys and men are as angry as they are, to be told implicitly that you're special, that you should be able to do something phenomenal, that this world is yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then to have that, and then to feel that, and then to suddenly be looked at with disappointment. What that would do to you. Because for me, it was like, I've spent most of my life, younger in life anyway, being like, knowing intimately and fighting for people who were never told that they were special.
Right.
Right? That's a very specific type of pain. But I really began to understand from then on what it felt like to maybe be told that you were special and then have the world reveal, like just pull the rug out from under you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How terrible is it to be told that you're supposed to run the world, to grow up being told that your job is to run the world, that you should expect to run the world, that you will run the world, and then, fast forward 15 years and you're, like running the fryer.
Yeah. What toxic man, if you could have
Not
one.
that running a fryer is actually failure at all.
No, not at all. But
preparing
it
food
is
is amazing. Every time I get fast food, I'm just like, why is it that
You're so
salaries at
wild for
fast
that.
food places, like we could literally live in a world tomorrow
Yeah.
that where like you could work at McDonald's and own a house.
Yeah, no,
And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like,
I
just give everyone
understand.
a house.
I get you wanting shit back in the day. I'm like, I really do. Like, you could be a fucking mailman and send all three of your kids to college and have an illegitimate family and son you also send to college and still have a retirement savings plans. That's what it was like for dudes in the 60s and 70s. But what I always want to remind all these guys, especially comedians, are just like, I want things to go back to the way they were. Da, da, da. I'm just like, sure, economically, but I'm like, so suddenly you all grew up with happy dads? Just emotionally happy, stable dads? No, I don't fucking think so. Patriarchy, to your point, was still that psychological, like most of y'all grew up with like very emotionally unavailable, physically unavailable fathers. And but if there was like one toxic man, right, that you could talk to on a massive stage, right? You had your pick of the litter. You had Musk, you had Trump, you had Tate, you had Peterson, Walsh, Shapiro. Who would you sit down with and have a proper gloves off? Let's actually have it.
So, okay, here is the caveat that I have to make for answering this question.
Got it.
Is that we both have to drink truth serum before we get on stage with each other.
Oh, that's fucking gangster. We have a hot wing fucking talk show. Give me that one.
Right. Because like I just know that like the challenge with getting, and part of what's going to be fun with this book coming out is like I'm gonna try to go on Joe Rogan like fully, like, and I expect to succeed at getting on that pod. Like I want to talk to the dude. Like honestly,
I loved who he used to be, and I think that guy's still in there. I don't know.
Well, and I'm like, I also don't like. I'm like, look, at the end of the day, like I don't really listen to your stuff. I don't have a concept of who you are. I'm just sitting down with the person and I want to talk. Like, I know you're important, but that's literally all I know about you. And I'm not going to go listen to your podcast in preparation because I don't expect that our episode is going to go the way that all the rest of them have gone. Right. And I don't want to build any idea of who you are based off of like who you've been, because I'm not trying to get you to be who you've been. Right. Like I'm trying to open the door for you and I to do something different in conversation. You can't always rely on people to like if they are really if they're insidious, like they're not going to be honest,
Yeah.
right? But if we both had to drink truth serum, so we're not allowed to lie, like
I
it's just
love
not
that.
possible.
Yeah.
Like I would absolutely, just in terms of right now in this moment, I need to sit down with Trump.
Yeah.
And I need to be like, we have to talk about your childhood. No, like we got to talk about your dad. We got to talk about your parents.
Yeah.
I need to know what you're scared of. I need to know what you're afraid of. I need to know why you don't feel like you're enough.
Mm.
I need to know why you don't feel like you're enough. Why don't you feel like you're
Do
enough?
you think that he's still reachable?
Well, that's something you can't know until you try.
Yeah.
There are ways to try without becoming an apologist.
There's the truth serum part of it though, which would, I think, bring
Right.
some shit
Like,
out. Yeah.
I mean, and to like, for example, like I would never, if the goal for me is to do the same bullshit that they do, which is
Yeah.
like build platform with scandal and just make a bunch of money by exploiting our side of the street, which, like, let's be very clear, that's most people who are popular on the internet who you follow, that's most of their MO, right? Like they would love to sit down with Trump to debate him and make a point or two so that they get fucking glory and they get to fucking buy a house in Malibu or wherever the fuck they want to buy it. Like the reality is that like most of these transformative conversations need to happen not in the public eye.
Interesting.
The conversation I'm most interested in is I want to get dinner with Joe Rogan and I want us to talk and it not be recorded.
Yes. This is actually a really good place to sort of like to go like full circle with the convo,
Yeah.
and again in the interest of time, but because I know you got something coming up, but with the wins that they've had, I mean, this is like full fucking sweep, right? It's a full sweep, and it's fine. That's what happens when the system's geared for certain types of people. Blah 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 blah. Super PACs, lobby groups, whatever. It makes sense. It tracks. There was this whole. There were two major, threads that came out for anybody on the left. So progressive all the way down to one, of course, was the Democrats, that's the Democrats, they're terrible. But the other was we need our own sort of lefty Joe Rogan and this, that, and the other. I think that's an oversimplification. But I want like to, because I agree with you on the need for these like private conversations. I have generally struggled with social media, because of how it just doesn't, it's not a place to go. Like I don't have that impulse of like, I got to make content. I got to be the first one out with this. It's not, but I'm starting to feel, not even starting to, I understand that actually I might need to feel that more, and that there are more than several of us who sort of need to take up a bigger role in the public sphere. I know that's not the solution, but people who are willing to demonstrate, the people who actually are doing what Barry Weiss thinks that she's fucking doing, where it's just like, what do you, where do you land with that? Because I'm just like, I completely agree. Like, it's hard to have honesty there. And at the same time, I do feel like I don't like the folks who are our current representations, the ones who have the debates that are empty and hollow and entertainment. And at the same time, do we have a responsibility to participate in that right now?
I mean, that is truly a question for the ages, right?
Yeah.
Like I've actually been surprised that conversation is not more top of mind for people.
Yeah.
Like the number of like gay comedians still using Twitter is like what? And also like everyone's going on Instagram to post their rate, how angry they are at Mark Zuckerberg. And I'm like, do you understand the degree to which you're being played?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of a funny metaphor on the spot right now.
I
I'm
feel
like,
you though, because the opt out though is just not the solution right now.
well, right, but it's like, but the answer is also not for us to do the same. Like, it doesn't work when we try to do the same thing.
That's right. That's right.
Like I actually
I
think
agree.
like because the very act of lionizing someone, of turning someone into a hero, is the act of bestowing them with capital.
So you're saying that we don't, like a transgender D-Ray is not going to save us.
No.
Just like
No,
a baby T instead of a blue vest. Is that's not?
I just think that like no celebrity or icon is going to save us. Like
Yeah.
that's not how movement leadership works. Like,
No.
and that's not how like it's not how you like it's not how you unbuild these things.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, people who like the moment you become famous, the moment you become like have tons of notoriety, you get tons of money and then they own you.
Yeah. Yeah. As a E-lister to E-lister,
Yeah.
yeah, elite, right? But we had our moments, and then we kind of didn't do the thing that you're supposed to do, which is just
Right. I'm
cling
supposed to
and
launch a makeup brand and become a
yeah,
makeup scion.
cling and run to it, and hold on to it, and then yeah, pump
Supposed to be
out
like makeup
products.
by Jacob, product review. Non-binary empowerment. Pay for this thing that came from a factory to empower other non-binary people. And by that I mean me. Wow, look at this amazing non-binary pen. It's so good. Did you know that you can write on paper with it? Buy my
Oh my
pen.
god! Except for like one of the naked girl pens, except you just turn into a transgender. Like your gender flips.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. 100%. Like that kind of bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. I so I'm with you. So like I'm hearing though, it's like yes, and it's like yes, we have to be more maybe
Yeah.
diligent, but we can't do that. If we try to replicate what they're doing, we will fail. We actually need to have connection to organizations and to organizers and to actual campaigns. Like if we just try to do the talking heads thing, and that's exactly it. I think that's the thing that's frustrated me most about the transgender
Yeah.
movement is the actual movement has been trans women, largely trans women of color, who are still part of organizations, who are still running campaigns or whatever. But generally, the sort of trans movement has been, oh, we have a trans actor now. We have a new
Oh
one.
yeah, we don't have any kind of actual real
Yeah.
like they're like
It's extremely
I don't
representation based.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's literally like who did cisgender Hollywood executives choose to be your icon for you?
Yeah. Oh, that's a fucking.
It's true. We did not sit down and democratically choose any of these
Can
people.
you imagine the fight we would have? Like, imagine it
No,
was
but
like
it's a true
the
fact. Like
town
it's
hall of
important for
like
us
the
to
woke
name it.
town hall of transgenders, and we were deciding who was going to be the up next. That would actually, I would watch that. I would
That is
watch that.
something we should do though.
Yeah.
Like it should like if we had that level of movement discipline, we would
Yeah.
be we would not be in the hole that we're currently in. Because literally right now we are relying on a bunch of cis people to decide who should be our champions
Yeah.
in
You
every
just, you
arena.
just said something. You just like that pause.
Like there
You
is
rendered me
not,
inarticulate.
yeah, it's just a fact. Like almost every trans icon you have, like every non-binary icon you have, my ass included, your ass included, we were chosen by cis people. Cis people decided we got a platform. Cis people decided that we would get money. Cis people would decide whether or not we got campaigns. And the moment that they decided that we weren't that useful for them, all of a sudden, our own community doesn't care about us as much either. I'm gonna say it. It's true.
It's, I
Like
mean, I could not
the
agree
degree
with
to
you
which
more.
casting directors control the trans movement is actually bonkers. It makes no fucking sense. They do.
Nah, okay, yeah, yeah,
And it's
yeah.
just proof how celebrity culture is not going to save us.
It's not.
Like, I
One
hope that
hundred
I
percent.
never, like, it's like, I just think in general, it's like the moment that someone is like into hero worshiping somebody, I'm like, yo, you're never going to accomplish anything in movement stuff. Like, we're not, we're like, we can't. and it's like, you watch people go through it and try to figure out how to manage it. And it's interesting watching various like progressive political figures try to figure out what to do with that.
Yeah.
And it's like some people like I think, you know, like AOC is a really interesting study in sort of like over indexing on that, getting lost in it for a while, trying to find your way back. And it's really hard,
Yeah.
right? Like I think, the texture, I really love the texture of like Bernie Sanders in that he's too frumpy. He like his very nature resists being commoditized by the media in the way that they, because like he's just never suave or together in the way that they like want, like I like
Yeah.
that kind of energy.
Matzo
And
balls.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I just want like I I want us to think like, what does it mean to hold power in ways that defies being co-opted quite so easily?
Hmm.
And what does it mean
Yeah.
for us as communities to be more literate in who is determining who within our own communities has power? Because that everything starts there. Until cis people don't get to control for us which trans people are deemed important, we are not going to get what we need in the world.
Yeah. I do feel like I think on this show I sometimes run the risk of you know, articulating my frustrations around the trans community, but it's often not the trans community itself. It's how it's being articulated or like understood. Like for example, I could make a post right now and talk about being trans and being terrified or something like that.
Yeah,
Fucking pop off. But if I talk about
absolutely.
migrants right now who are the 30,000 that are slated to get sent to fucking Guantanamo Bay, and like that's what happens when we have a politic of aesthetic that we have zero control over, but it has zero racial analysis. Like we're still so afraid to grapple with race on any level, and that's why every attack that they've made, identity politics, woke, critical race theory, and DEI are all about completely obliterating any kind of racial justice rhetoric. Because the second that we actually start doing that and bring that together with a class analysis that just fucking, where it's just like, fuck your identity. Like,
Yeah.
that, what are your values and your beliefs? Like, that is the scariest thing. And I think that for trans folks, I feel like glad or like white trans people. Like, I have never heard a white trans woman talk about anything else other than being trans in my fucking life.
Well, maybe we need to get you some better friends first. I'm just saying. I'm like
No,
there are.
I'm
I
talking
don't know
about
who you're talking
the ones
to.
that are the most known on social media. But also, I just did a quick accounting in my head, and it's like, no, actually, I think there's a dearth of white trans women friends. Yeah.
Well, I'm not. It's less about like a dearth of friends in terms of like meeting, but just like I just think that like your sample size, we could get you some people who maybe have a little more going on.
But certainly the ones
Just
that
in
are
terms of
yapping, the ones who
personality,
are most known on social media, that is
right?
all that they talk about. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'd want to see the evolution where you're talking about something else. Because I know, I think entering consciousness, political consciousness through identity is completely natural.
Yeah.
And I'm not I really hate this whole, oh, took you long enough, or what the fuck were you doing when da 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 da. I'm like, no, the way to approach it is welcome home, right? That's the way to
Right.
approach it. That's how we keep people. I don't care what when you were radicalized. I care that you were. But it is kind of funny because I'm just like, all right, bitch. It's been 50 days straight. There's other things happening. I would love to hear you talk about.
Right, right. Like, I mean, and I think that's in general, like that's part of where the like we need to be better at being in and better, by better I mean more strategic. Like
Yeah,
this isn't even a moral value so much as like judging our efficacy. Like
yeah.
we need to be better at being in real coalition around things that really matter.
Things that really matter.
And
That's
as
it.
our own community, elevating the people who are already in coalition doing that fucking work.
Yeah. Because I'm going to just say it. What is more transgender than having a GoFundMe with no money in it? It's always been economic, bitch. We got okay.
Right,
Okay.
right. I mean, like, yeah, we definitely like, class consciousness needs to have a little more of a moment.
Yeah, and no amount
And
of fucking androgel coupled with like a ketamine nose spray is going to change the fact that we need a fucking robust healthcare, plan and fucking money.
I'm so pleased with how messy this conversation has been.
Yeah, it's like,
Like this,
and the people are ready for it. They are ready for it and they want it. Jacob, I hope this does not come off across as an attack, because if somebody was asking me this, I would feel that way.
yeah.
When can we expect this work out? Because there's going to be
Oh,
people who want to
no.
read it.
So I mean, it will be like it is almost done. Like the exact pub date has not been announced yet, I don't think.
Yeah.
But like it should be out this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Like it will
can't
be
say the
this calendar
same
year.
about mine.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yours is still being written,
Yeah. I need
and that's
the
okay.
final round of edits is coming, and
Turns
then
out writing
whatever.
memoirs is very difficult
Yeah. Me
when
more.
you write them
Me.
yourself.
Yeah. I hate it. The second half
Well, that
wasn't
was your
prolific. You're
mistake,
right
as you
there.
just
Yeah.
did. You should have just done what everyone else does and just gotten a ghostwriter and don't write your own damn book. Which that's a separate issue that just on a very petty level, I'm like, we need to make that shit illegal.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
we
yeah.
need to
I like the
credit,
pride. I want to know that you fucking suffered, right? Like, I
right.
want to know that you suffered, because then I know it's real.
Yeah, like, and also just like in general, like if someone wrote the book and then like if it's as told to somebody,
Yeah.
then you need to put that person on the cover with you. Like their name needs to be there too.
I actually fuck
It's
with
just
that
like really
energy.
shitty.
I
Like
fuck with that
how many
energy.
people will let someone write an entire book for them and they just think it's fine that they're like, no, but I'm putting my name on it.
I can't wait until Chat GPT is like, I need to unionize, because you fuckers, you
Well, because
fuckers.
half of the publishing marketplace, it's like everyone's like, oh my God, ChatGPT is going to replace real writers. And I'm like, do you realize that like I would say that 80% of the memoirs that most inspired you were not written by the actual people whose name is on the cover
Yeah,
already?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
has that thought never occurred to you? And people are like, what? And I'm like, yeah, these people don't write their own books.
The way that when I found out how normal, how rampant, I was like, oh, like this is like for real, like, because I read a lot of fucking shit and a lot of memoirs. And yeah, I know the only person I feel like in the last little while where I could be like, I know this nigga wrote this book was Norm Macdonald, because that shit was crazy. And only he could write that way. It's just like, what the fuck? Okay, so we are going to be looking out for your work. Jacob Tobia, fucking thank you so much for being our first guest on Dark Woke. And
I'm so happy to be here.
yeah,
I love stumbling through all this with you and being like, we don't have the answers yet, but goddamn, we need to be a little more honest about
and
asking the questions in
this
public.
is, yes, and this is a fucking, it was a stumble, and now we're finally in the first leg of the 100-meter dash. This is the third fucking rebrand that the diehard OGs have had to endure from
Oh,
me.
well, you
But
guys.
this is the final one. Like, it finally hit where I was like, oh, this is exactly the energy. And you brought that energy. I learned some shit. And I love saying that.
Too.
Yeah, I learned some shit. So, everybody, thank you for listening to Dark Woke. This was Jacob Tobia. This is somebody you want to know, somebody you want to follow, and somebody you will be seeing a lot of. Because when you put out, you put out.
And now we're back to me maybe wanting to fuck you, and I don't know how it feels. Anyway.
All right. I'm not gonna hit no end music because I don't know what I'm doing yet. So I appreciate you all. You know where to find me, and we are out. Love y'all.